Okay, so I think that we are ready to go. It's 3:02. We wait 2 minutes for those who were joining, and I will keep adding the new joiners. So welcome back to our workshop 3. I hope that all of you have a wonderful weekend, and it's very nice to see you. Today we have a very, very nice and interesting workshop. I mean, we have a total of 5 workshops in the accelerator. So today it will be workshop, the third workshop. So we are kind of like mid-journey to the end goal. So I hope that you find this workshop very insightful. Again, as a reminder, don't forget to book your mentoring sessions with the tech team that are mandatory, but as well, if you want, you can book your mentoring session with the mentor circle mentors available to get some insights. So if you want to ask questions regarding the industry, whatever, they are there available for you. So as a reminder, I will walk through the housekeeping rule. Please keep your mic muted because now we are around 40 people in the room, so it will be a little bit noisy. So if you want to ask, obviously you can ask at any time, just raise your hand to speak. The chat is also open, so if you don't want to interrupt, you don't want to raise your hand, you feel free to type your question on the chat because the team is checking the question there, so they will be able also to answer. Always, we left some minutes at the end for the Q&A, so you also can save your questions at the end. And we respect the space, let the facilitator to conduct the session as well as other participants to ask the questions. Can we go next? Please, if you are joining from your phone, quickly turn on your laptop, join from your laptop because we will be sharing some links and resources. So it's easier and better if you join from your laptop. Also, keep your mobile phone handy because we will be sharing some QR codes. So you will need it for to scan it. And last but not least, please, 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 everybody go now into the Zoom settings and rename yourself. That is key because it's the way that we track the attendance. Attendance to the workshop is mandatory. Doesn't mean that the full team has to join. No need the full team, but at least one team member. So how we know what is the team? We cannot know unless that you please rename yourself. So I will appreciate if you can put your name / and the app name. So please, Corina, Faisal, Luisa, Good Guru, very well, is here. So San, so please rename yourself. That's it. So thank you very much once again for joining us today. And I will hand over to Fawaz, Suresh, and Tuan that they are here ready to rock with you.
Thank you very much, Carmen. Hi, everyone.
No
Hi,
worries.
everyone. Amazing to meet you back again in another workshop to greet and meet to get everything done in place. Right, brilliant. So we are in the workshop 3. As Carmen said, we are crossing a very important milestone. It's like you have made everything very clear. You are there, and development, MVP, feature list. We had very basic intense one-to-ones, and we have agreed on an individual journey map. So today, let's talk a little bit of development because upcoming next week that's the conversations we're gonna have. Brilliant. So we have a few more weeks to get, and we have a clear milestone why we need to get onto this. As I said, understanding the app development from idea to app. Let's go a little bit into technical architecture, core concepts of development, how you can develop certain concepts and certain arenas with a little bit of demonstration, understanding few path to production. Our goal is to get your app published in the MVP in the next couple of weeks, right? So it's very important to have those favorites. Let's move. Brilliant. Let's get to that talk of the topic, right? With everyone amazing. So let's head into when you hear app development, what feels most confusing? One word. When you hear app development, let's develop. We know that we technically have about 24 conversations about production, methodologies, features, and all of it. So We know how so much of conversations we had in the last week. So when you hear app development, what it feels the most for you or most confusing? Let's go next and see what we got. Okay, so amazing. There's more to come. Please get on to the QR, and I would like more responses. But yeah, codes and API, brilliant, right? So yes, we're going to talk about no code, low code, the most complicated AI features. If you are to develop, where should you connect, and few other things in a very demonstrative way, right? Amazing. Let's go next. All right. While going into the workshop objective, if you have any questions, please do raise. So today's ultimate goal is to make sure we all understand how the app product development in terms of development, coding environment can work, production environments can work. That's the main call. So it's the anatomy of app, right? From the front end, back end, and APIs. We talked about some of your APIs and codes, right? It's very important for that. These are fundamentals for us to have the MVP published. You might have a plan for front end, back end, and API if you have internal other configurations. And the track specific workflow. I know we right now we have decided pathways of how are we going to develop ours. Some of you have low code, which means you have somebody to command and develop in an AI environment who understand the coding so that they can fix things for you. And then some of you have no code at all, and some of you low code, and some of you full code. And for these three components, we have developed three pathways, personal journeys. But let's go into areas which can help us. A Firebase deep dive, because end of the day, we are talking about data. Some information has to be stored, processed, like for your ideas and MVP features we had. How the backend as a service superpower, and it can have a deep dive. And then an AI acceleration. I know we have given a tight deadlines, right? So, but we also need to have the arm and the tool to do that. So sometimes we have very limited people, solopreneurs, or we depend on AI environment development, right? So there, how do you understand using the AI tools to achieve the goal of having this production environment figured out? And the last but not least is the publication. Let's also be very conscious about what we are developing as front end, back end, and all of it can navigate towards to a Google place, first MVP, or App Store's timelines and other challenges. This is the key objective, right? Let's be sharp focus. Please shoot your questions. This don't consider this as a webinar because it is not. So let's be engaging, shoot your questions, and be very productive as much as we can. Yeah, let's move. Right, so we have Suresh and Tuan. We're going to do multiple demonstrations, right? And we're going to switch between screens and all of it. So let's be very dynamic and be engaging. Thank you very much. Looking forward for the upcoming calls to be connect you back. Yes, Suresh and Tuan.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're all having a great time. So after the first workshop, it's really great to connect with all of you once again. And during the mentoring sessions, I saw some really great products and ideas that are coming up. So it's really great to see your enthusiasm, and it's really great to see how you all are working, how you all are putting your maximum effort to get your ideas up and running. So yeah, so today we have a very special workshop plan for all of you. So let's straight away get into the straight away get into the content, and I hope my screen is visible.
Okay, Suresh. Suresh, the screen is not visible yet. Okay, until that. Team, have you got any questions before we start? Like, let's at least Suresh come back. Let's also talk. What's the biggest challenge you have in terms of development right now, so that we can also make sure we demonstratively attend to that? Okay. Suresh back.
Hello, yes.
Okay.
Hi, I'm audible, right?
You are Suresh, but screen is not visible.
Brilliant. Yeah, just give me a second. Yeah, is it? I hope it's visible now. Perfect. All right. So sorry about the slight technical difficulty. Anyways, again, it's really great to be here and to connect with you all once again. So today we have a very special workshop tailored to all of you. It's about the development because right now, so compared to the previous workshop, I see a massive improvement from what you all had previously. And then in the previous workshop, as a nutshell, we discussed how you can bring your initial idea to a very basic MVP stage. So today we're going to be discussing about the development aspect, how we can make sure your application is well developed, as well as what are the different development tracks we can take, as well as what are the different technologies we can use to build your application. So those are the things that we'll be discussing today. So without further ado, let's get started. So first of all, I want to make you all understand the whole concept of development. I know that all of you are from different backgrounds. Some people are low coders and there are no coders as well as full coders. So to address the full audience, let me come across with some sort of a concept that which is there in terms of the development perspective. So we have three areas. One thing is the front end, back end, as well as a database. So for application to work properly, we need all three basically, the front end, back end, and the database. And finally, we have another optional attribute, which is the API. So let me give a very basic example for this. Just imagine you're going to a restaurant and you are ordering a food, right? The food is being prepared in the kitchen and you're giving the order to the waiter. So the waiter is going to take your order and then it's going to be given to the kitchen and the kitchen staff is going to prepare the order and again hand over the order to the waiter and the waiter is going to serve you. Just think it as an application, right? So for an example, we can say the kitchen staff is the database, right? They are the ones who are holding the information, right? They are the ones who are holding the food. And the waiter could be known as the backend. So the waiter is the one who's capturing the user's request. For an example, let's say I go to a pizza restaurant and then I am placing an order for my favorite pizza. And also the waiter is going to take the quantity and it's going to go to the kitchen and take the pizza and deliver to me. So the waiter can be known as the backend, right? Because waiter is responsible on capturing the user's request and then delivering it to the user, right? Because the user has no direct connection with the backend, right? The user can't just go to the kitchen and straight away ask the kitchen staff to give me a pizza. So we need a backend that would handle the logic for you, right? So front end is basically the waiter, right? So waiter is going to directly interact with the user. So the user is going to be the front end, right? Who's going to get the service incorporated. So we can know it as that basically. So now let's deep dive into the concepts that we have in terms of development. First of all, let's talk about the front end. So all of you are building applications, right? Some applications could be mobile-based applications, and some applications could be web-based applications, but built for mobile. So in this case, we should understand the different types of components we have, the different types of frameworks we could use, and the different ways of programming these sort of applications. So that's a must-to-have requirement when we are building this sort of a application. So even for a full stack application, we still need the front end. So let's talk about the technologies. So you might have heard about technologies like HTML, CSS. So those are the primarily front-end development frameworks we have. If you have to build a very basic website, if you have to build a very basic web page, we can use something like HTML and CSS. So that was the initial level of front-end development, right? Because if you know the very basic Hello World application that was developed like 20 years ago, it was done with HTML and CSS. So after that, developers wanted to extend the behavior of web applications into mobile applications, right? So they want to extend the same behaviors of HTML and CSS because a lot of people are nowadays used to web development. They wanted to build web applications with their favorite syntax, with their favorite programming language, right? Something that is easy to understand. So HTML and CSS can be known as a very easy to understand language. And then the company of Meta, the original company who developed Facebook, they came up with their own framework to develop the very famous Facebook social network. The current version that you see online is built with a framework called React Native. So what they did was basically they inherited some of the behaviors of HTML and CSS that any developer could easily adapt into a front-end framework like React Native. So with React Native, we had the flexibility of developing applications to iOS, to Android, and different other frameworks as well. So along with React Native, they have launched another interesting framework called React.js. So React.js is actually a really great framework that people could use to build front-end applications, web applications, basically. So anyone who wanted to build a web dashboard or a website or something like a complex system, we could easily use React.js to build a website or the front-end application. So see how they have made an ecosystem, right? They didn't want to exclude in developers who are using HTML and CSS. And also they didn't want to exclude the developers who are building web applications. So what they have done is basically they have brought all of these developers together, the web developers, mobile app developers, and the front-end developers all together, and they have formed a unified set of frameworks called React Native and React.js. So that's the beauty of it. In recent days, let's say to be exact, 3 years ago, Google launched this 4 years ago, Google launched this very famous framework called Flutter. So Flutter is a very powerful framework that they launched from Google, and their focus is more towards building visually appealing front ends, basically. So they came up with the technology of Flutter, and then they have a special programming language called Dart to build Flutter applications. And now we have React Native, Flutter, that we can use to build beautiful front-end applications. Right. So that's the customer, right? That's how the customer is going to interact with whatever the backend size we have. For an example, if I go back to the previous example that I mentioned about the kitchen, right? Let's say if we have a very nice interactive dashboard or application that we can place the pizza order and then it delivers from the kitchen, right? So the front end can be done, the user facing part can be done with these sort of frameworks I mentioned. Let's go to the backend. So backend is actually the brain of the process, right? Just imagine in the same example I mentioned that the backend is responsible on taking the order from the user and then delivering that to the kitchen, right? So basically, it's more like a processor. Just imagine another process. For an example, just imagine you're using your favorite social media. Maybe that could be Instagram, maybe that could be Facebook, LinkedIn, right? Just imagine you're trying to log into your favorite social media network. What happens there is basically, from the front end, you are entering your username and password together. And then backend is responsible on validating or verifying whether your username and password is correct. And then it will check against the database and retrieve your credentials and then says, okay, the password and username is correct and you can log in. You are free to go, right? So the logic handling part is completely done through backend. So in terms of backend development, there are certain frameworks that we can use to build backend applications. So this actually mostly applies to the full code track actually. So we'll talk about the different technologies that applies under different tracks. So there are different frameworks. For an example, Node.js is a really powerful framework we can use to build interactive backend applications. And we have something called Python. Python is a programming language. But on top of Python, we have some other backend frameworks like Python Flask and Fast API. So those are some of the most powerful backend frameworks that we could use to build interactive backends. So the front end can talk to your backend and the backend could talk to the database, right? All right. So apart from the backend, so recently you might have heard about a concept called serverless, right? So backend, what happens is basically, even if you build a backend, you have to host it somewhere, right? For an example, you might have to use your own cloud provider. Maybe that could be Google Cloud Service or AWS or Azure. Depending on the cloud solution you use, you have to host it somewhere. But nowadays, companies like Google, Microsoft, and Amazon has made it very simple by introducing a new concept called serverless functions, right? Serverless means you can simply build individual backend functions and deploy in their own serverless operators, basically. So in that case, we don't have a server maintenance. That means we don't have to take care of the infrastructure. We don't have to take care of the server scaling and package upgrades. Automatically, what we could do is basically we can build an individual function and we can deploy in their own system, basically. So the advantage is when it comes to the normal server spaces, the serverless is costing very less when compared to the actual server spaces. The serverless functions are costing very less. It's built based on the number of API calls you're making. For an example, just imagine you're completing a Uber trip, right? Or a Karim trip. So in that case, you might have seen, you might have gotten the email, right? Right after completing, right? You might have gotten the email. So in that case, let's say we have a serverless function which triggers right after a certain operation. Let's say the moment I complete the Karim trip or the Uber trip, it should trigger the serverless function. So based on the number of calls, the billing will be done. So that's the advantage of using serverless over a dedicated server. The third aspect is the database. So we can call it as memory, right? Which has all the information. So when it comes to databases, we have different types of databases. We have something called SQL databases, and we have something called NoSQL databases, relational and NoSQL. Relational means, for an example, let's say you have a wide range of data. Let's say you have data with multiple tables, content, and relationships, and maybe some sort of a complex representations. If you have a high grade of information representations and relationships, I would recommend going for a SQL database or a relational database. So for an example, we have technologies such as Postgres and MySQL. So those are some of the greatest frameworks and greatest database technologies that we can use to build these databases. So we have those things. And then we have another type of database called NoSQL, which is actually a non-relational database. For an example, just imagine if you have a very dynamic data source. Let's say if your data is changing very frequently, and also if your data is scaling very frequently, I would recommend going for a MongoDB database or a NoSQL database is much better than going for a relational database, because you can have a dynamic schema, right? If your data is very volatile and if your data is subject to change over the time. So that's the difference basically. So when you're choosing a database, we should always think what sort of a operation that I'm going to do, right? What sort of challenges that I would face in the future. Based on that only, we should pick the right choice. Let me give a sample example. So a couple of years ago, I built a ticketing platform, a e-ticketing platform, where the customers could buy tickets and where the customers could, retrieve and they can purchase tickets and they can scan the QR code and they can attend the events. When I was planning the architecture, one of the biggest issues that I faced was, okay, so the user's information, of course, relational, right? Because we know the user's name, user's email, phone numbers, things like that. And the company wanted to get reports based on the user's interactions, maybe the user's purchase history, maybe the user's information, and sometimes based on the user's previous interactions, the company wanted to get reports. So how are we going to write queries? Yes, of course, we wanted to have a relational database for the purpose of writing queries, right? In terms of that, that part is sorted. But when talking about the ticket quantity, let's say the per event, they used to sell somewhere around, let's say 10,000 tickets, maybe sometimes 5,000 of tickets, and they want to fetch it very fast. At the ticket counter, they just wanted to scan a simple QR code and they want to fetch the ticket very fast, and they wanted to check in the user. So in that scenario, you might have noticed that, okay, in terms of the scalability is very high, right? Because the database scales up very rapidly. So we'll have to make the right choice on which database we should apply based on the scale, based on the information you want to output, based on the analytics you want to provide. So it's a decision that you all have to make based on the scenario and the use case. So just because you all are familiar with a particular technology, we should not use it at a given point. So it's a decision that we should take based on the case study, based on the scenario, and based on the scale of the data. So for the contestants who are under the low code track and the no code track, now you all might be thinking, okay, I'm talking about big technical terms here. So what are the options we have right now? Don't be discouraged or anything like that, because there are options. How do you represent data in low code and no code approaches? So we have a visual way of representing information. There's a really good data structure called Airtable. So it's more like Google Sheets. I believe all of you here who has used Google Sheets, which is a really powerful way of representing information. But apart from Google Sheets, we have another type of data store called Airtable, especially for the low-code people and the no-code people. You all can try out Airtable because you can make your own data structure and your own data schema on top of Airtable, right? So for an example, the columns and the rows and the data types and whatever the information you want to represent, yes, Airtable is very flexible on handling all of your data. And also the most interesting thing is that you can create the integration between Airtable and your platform as well. Right. So that's about the data structures and the databases. So feel free to drop in your questions if you all have anything to ask. I'm free to clarify anything because I know some of these terms could be very technical. So, but I can clarify if there's any difficulties, if there's any sort of clarifications that you wanted. Feel free to use the chat section. I'm there to help you out. So finally, the API layer. So we discuss about the front end, we discuss about the back end, and we discuss about the database, right? Just imagine you are going to a restaurant in a foreign country, right? And you're trying to order with your own native language. What would happen? The waiter wouldn't understand your language, right? The waiter wouldn't understand anything that you speak, right? But the waiter is still capable of handling the order for you, right? The waiter is still capable of going to the kitchen and placing the order and still delivering it for you. So how do you fix that issue? But still, if the waiter can't understand what you're speaking, the point is gone, right? The waiter is no longer be able to serve you. So what we do is basically we ask the question in English, right? In most of the countries, waiters are capable of understanding English. If you speak in English, they would understand. It's a universal language that anyone could understand. So to bridge that barrier in programming, to bridge that barrier in development, developers has come up with this concept called APIs. So we call it as the application programming interface. So we use APIs to standardize the language barrier, right? Sometimes the backend could have been written in a different language. For an example, it could be done with Node.js, Python. Sometimes the front end could be done with another framework, something which came up very recently. Still, the backend and the front end has to interact with each other, right? Even though they are done with different frameworks. So we'll have to have some sort of a connectivity layer, an interface. So that's why we have something called APIs, application programming interfaces, so that regardless of whatever the framework barriers, the backend and the front end can talk to each other and serves the purpose basically. Right. So let's move forward. All right. So apart from that, one of the other advantages of using an API is that not only the front end and the language, front end and the back end barrier, there's another advantage that is to interact with third-party systems. For an example, just imagine your application wants to have a map integration, right? For AI integration or some sort of a third-party weather service integration, right? Still, we had to talk to third-party systems, right? Because the mapping service, the AI service, or the whatever the other services are not within your system. So you had to talk to external services to get the services done. So in that case, still we had to talk to the external services in the language that they would understand. So that's why we have the API layer that is bridging the gap between third-party integrations, internal integrations, as well as frameworks that has different technology stacks. So we don't have to worry about that. We have the glue layer, which is the API. Once you have the API done, yes, of course, you can connect with your internal application, even the third-party applications. Yes, you have the capability basically. All right. So now let's talk about each track, right? So I know we have a diverse audience, a very diverse audience. So I'm trying to make it very simplified and generic as well, so that all of you will be covered by the curriculum. Right. First of all, let's talk about the no-code track. So in terms of no-code track, we have three main focuses. First thing is the data binding, which means like I mentioned before, we could have had a database like Airtable, right? So there has to be a way to fetch the information from Airtable to link with your low-code application. So we call it as a data binding. For an example, let's say you are building an e-commerce marketplace. Just imagine you're building an e-commerce marketplace, and the information which is there in the table or the database has to be represented in your own user interface. So we call it as a data binding, right? So for an example, the concept is given here as this list displays a product table. So in that case, the products are there in your database, and you should call the database, it should call the database items, and then it should be displayed as a visual component. The second concept is that the logic, right? So the logic is really important. So for an example, let's say displaying is not enough. It should do actions. For an example, maybe click, maybe an add to cart, maybe some sort of a payment, right? So that's the logic basically. So for every single action click, maybe a button click, maybe a purchase item click or a payment click or whatever, depends on whatever the click we have, it should trigger a function. So we call it as the logic, right? So after displaying the information, how are we going to make it interactive? Because an application without having some sort of interaction is pointless. So we have to make sure your application has some sort of a proper interaction in a way that the user could interact with the application, the user could interact with the data you have, and then do some sort of a action basically. For an example, as the example we have given here, when the button is clicked, it should send an email. So that's an example scenario that we could describe over here. Right. So now the third concept is that the ceiling, understanding the limitations. So when you're developing these applications, there are certain things we should always be mindful of. What are the limitations of the platform? What are the things we could do and what are things we cannot do? So that's something we should do in the reality check, right? Just imagine you're building a very basic, we are building a complex AI application, right? And if you decide to run a LLM in a mobile phone, is it feasible? No, right? Because there are some technical limitations of running an LLM on a mobile phone, and there are certain limitations we have. So we have to do a reality check here. What sort of limitations we have in the device, and what sort of hardware would it require to run an LLM in your device, basically. So we have to do the reality check because sometimes the hardware might not be enough to do certain tasks, but there are alternatives. So as you may know, let me tell you a story, right? So you might have, so I mentioned all the frameworks we have, the React Native and the Flutter framework, basically. So along with React Native and Flutter, there are a lot of limitations. For an example, if you ask to implement a map box or map display with React Native or Flutter, sometimes you can't do it. The main reason is that the Flutter and React Native has their own system capabilities, which means the capabilities that comes by default. But there are certain limitations that we have that we cannot achieve. As a solution, developers has launched a public package registry, which means if you want to add an additional capability to Flutter or React Native, we have the flexibility of writing a third-party package and listing in the marketplace. So it's more like a community of developers who are working for each other, right? So let's say if I am good at writing a skill for Flutter or React Native, yes, I can code it and I can list on the marketplace so that some other developer could be benefited. So as a result, companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon has come together and they have made a lot of packages for Flutter and React Native, and they have given so many capabilities for your applications. Even if you want to run an LLM or SLM within a mobile applications, yes, now they have made it capable with the Google's SDKs, Google AI agentic SDKs and all. It's all there in the it's all there in the package registry, which is there on for Flutter and React Native. So I'll show you how it looks like, and I'll show you how to find additional capabilities for applications so that in the future that you all can use it and do a productive build. All right, so let's move forward. All right, so can I know if there's any questions that you want to clarify based on what we discussed so far? Maybe y'all can hand raise on Zoom so that y'all can talk and interact with me as well to get your doubts clarified. I know that a lot of people are from different backgrounds. It's okay to ask questions from anywhere, even if it's not something under the scope that I discussed so far, feel free to ask. So I can explain on the way as well. All right, so until we get some questions, let me show you what are the options we have in terms of no code application building, right? So until we get some couple of questions, I'll show you some hands-on things that y'all can use to build no code applications, right? So I can recommend, there are some really good platforms. This is one of the best platforms that I can recommend for the ones who are beginners to programming. Adalo can be your life changer, right? Adalo has a no code application builder, which means you can use drag and drops and colors, and you can use it as a Microsoft Word application that you use to customize documentations. And you can just drag and drop components and drag and drop content and customize it in the way you want it. So let me show you how we can build a very basic application, especially targeting the no code builders. So let me create a sample account. So those who are very new, you can actually go to this option called sign up. And if you want to create a free account, yes, you can type in your email, password, and full name to sign up for a quick account. And if you already have the account, what you could do is you could simply log in with your personal account. And here we are. All right. So if you are a first-time user, you will see something like this. Let me show you what it looks like for a first-time user. Yeah. All right. So you will have an option called Create New Web. So what you could do is you can click on this option called Create New Web, and then you could choose whether if it's mobile or desktop, right? So right now, since you are going with mobile applications, I can just choose a mobile phone version and then go next. And here you can choose a template. So you have the freedom to choose a template, or either you can go with the empty template as well. So if you want to do the customization from ground up, you have the flexibility of doing that. So here, since I'm going to do something with a template, so I'm going to choose this shopping template. So I'm going to build a very basic shopping application. I'll show you how to do the customizations and all. And then at the end, you all can try out yourselves. Even after the workshop, feel free to try this out. Yeah, so selected. Next. For the branding, make sure you all choose your favorite colors. Not the favorite colors, okay? Don't get me wrong there. What I meant by that is basically the brand colors. Like I mentioned, even the last week itself, we should maintain the branding from the beginning itself, right? So branding is a emotion, right, that we cater. For an example, just imagine the McDonald's logo, right? If I say McDonald's, what are the two colors that comes to your mind? Is a maroon color and yellow color, right? If I say KFC, same, right? The red color and the white color and the black color, right? It's an emotion that we always convey to the user. If I say Facebook, it's always a purple color. If I say Kareem, it's a green color, right? Just like that, we should also decide, okay, what sort of branding are we going to follow, right? Even if you are doing a social media campaign later on, yes, we should have a particular color scheme, color palette that we have predefined. So every single post that you put out, yes, it should have the accent colors of whatever the colors that you pick. You can go ahead with that. All right. So once you do that, let's give it the application name. So I'll call it as let's say my shop or something like that. Okay. As a sample application, let me put a name like this and let me create it. All right. So it takes about 1 minute, 1 to 2 minutes to create the application. But anyway, until that creates, let me show you a sample application that I already have created so that we won't run out of time. So I'll straight away go to the application that I've already done. So this is actually done with the restaurant theme, which is already there as part of the theme gallery. So you can see this is how it comes basically. So from from Adalo, we have the flexibility of changing any of these content. See, for an example, using the visual editor, we can just customize these texts, and then we can have the functionalities, the product names, and things like that. We have the flexibility to customize any of these things, right? Just like a visual editor. So in case if you want to add some additional components, so we have different visual components over here. If you want to, it's just a matter of dragging and drop over here. Let's say if you want to have a form, just a matter of, let's say, dragging and dropping like this, then you can customize the layout, right? It's a very basic way to build up your application, especially for the low code people. So yeah, feel free to walk through all the features we have with Adalo. It's a really great platform. So going back to what I mentioned earlier, the data binding. Data binding is really important, right? Because it's all about how you represent the information in a way that the user would understand. Any question?
Larry, your eyes were like this. Guys, I don't know. Can you?
All right. Okay. So yeah. So like I mentioned, data binding is one of the most important things we should consider about when we are building applications, right? So like I mentioned, how you mention the data, how you represent the data which is there in your database in a user-friendly way, how you represent that. Yes, in Adalo we can do that. So in Adalo we have something called database. It's a section that they have given access to. So we can actually create our own database, right? So this could be a Google Sheet, or this could be some other data collection external source as well. So for an example, let's say if I want to show something like food items, I can create a collection name called food items over here. And then I can link any source of information. See, before that, we should link the properties, right? For an example, let's say the food item would consist of the food item name, description, image, or any information like that. So just a matter of adding the properties like this, and then creating whatever the properties and linking with the application basically. So let me show you that. Let's say a name. I'll call the second property as description. Save. Let's see. All right. So we have some informations, and then as the next step, what we could do is the data binding part, right? So now we have the information here, and you can even keep on adding information to this as well. Let's say add food item. What you could do is you can add the food item name, let's say pizza, and you can have you can upload the image, you can upload a sample image as well, and you could put a description, and you can create it basically just like this, right? So we have a pizza food item created. And one more interesting thing is that if you already have some sort of a third-party data source, maybe let's say a database or something like that, we have the option of linking that with this. So we have a API documentation. So this is actually a bit of technical as well for someone who's beginning right now, but they have different, along with the paid version of Adalo, they have given access to external collections. For an example, if it's a third-party database, for a third-party collection, for a third-party system, yes, we have the flexibility of connecting with third-party data sources to get the information and represent it as a visual application. Yes, we have the complete flexibility. All right. So after adding all the information, what we could do is we could data bind it, right? So you can see this is a section which is a list. So we can actually link that with whatever the informations we have in hand. So in this case, if I say food items, I can just choose my collection, and I can have the filters, and also I can link with each component basically. For an example, here we have a label, so I can map that label with product name. And then let's say if I have another one, here we have a label and the image. I can link the image with the content source, which is in the database. So I can say current food items property. I can mention that basically, right? So just like that, data binding could be done when you have a data source and when you have some sort of a external third-party database. Yes, automatically the database would be updated, and simultaneously our application gets updated as well. So that's the reason. That's how we could have we could build applications with Flutter. Adalo, and also we can have the interactions also. For an example, just imagine you have a click event. When you click something, it should trigger event, right? For an example, if it requires some sort of login, yes, we can have the interactions. We have the way of defining the action. For an example, let's say you want to add a click event. Whenever you click an event, what should do next? And should it go to the next page? And should it trigger an event? Should it trigger a notification? Things like that. Yes, we have the flexibility of customizing every single interaction with the interactions API we have right here. And then you can see the flow, right? The login flows and the sign up flows, as well as the displaying of information. So all of these things are possible with the usage of Adalo. So I can give you a really great recommendation of Adalo documentation. So Adalo has a very comprehensive documentation that you all can refer to. So this is the Adalo get start guideline. Let me share this link in chat also so that you all can check it out later. They have content from the beginner to advanced to intermediate as well. So regardless of whatever the level you're in, you'll have the flexibility of experiencing Adalo and working around it. There are so much of potential that could be unlocked with Adalo. Right. So do we have any questions up to now? All right, so let's move forward. If there's any questions, yeah, like I mentioned, feel free to use the chat section, or you can hand raise so I can clarify if there's anything that y'all needed. Yeah. All right, let's move forward. So along with Adalo, they have the flexibility of exporting your application as a bundle, right? So something to note, if you want to export your application as an APK or AAB file for Android, you need to have the paid version of Adalo. Because right now, with the free version, you can't export an APK file. So you need to have the paid version of Adalo to export the APK file or the AB file. So you can actually see their pricing. So these are the benefits they offer. So as you can see, the free one, we only have one application access. And then for the start application, we have different other flexibilities as well as feasibilities. So even for exporting of APKs, yes, we could have the professional version or the starter version in a way that we can export the APK and upload to the Play Store for publication, basically. Right. All right, so let's move forward. So yeah, let me close this.
All right, Suresh, let me come in a little. Hi, team. Just wanted to figure out that we all are connecting to what we are talking, so that in terms of any specific questions you have, can we talk in terms of questions like where you have your challenges on your product development on the front end or back end? I know most of you, we had a one-to-one, and that's why this is just helping us as a knowledge download, but would like to integrate. So Suresh, imagine if this has an option where my idea has to be completely developed on a no code.
Yeah.
Right. And when most of the time what happens is when you use anti-gravities and all of it, it requires a coding assistant. Right.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
most importantly, because going into the deployment.
Mm-hmm.
Out of these approaches, when you don't have a developer, what is the best approach?
I would say taking the easiest option is the most safest option. So I would say going ahead with the no code option would be the most the feasible option, because we have to work with the time also, right? Because we have very limited amount of time, 45 days. So the thing is, in order to learn something from the beginning itself, it takes a little bit of time, right? Because we had to adhere with the timeline, and we had to have the backup time as well if something goes wrong with the publication. So I would recommend for someone who's beginning right now, no code would be the perfect track.
Perfect approach, right? Team, is there like anyone who doesn't have a developer right now? I know few teams who doesn't, and but we have agreed on a AI MVP and all of it. Anyone who wants to raise a question about exact problem that you are facing right now, how it could be helpful, because you are talking the same product development journey, right? Anyone, team members, any questions? All right. Is everyone is on the call? Yes, no? Chat? Let's come on chat. Yes, Alan. Yes, Sumi. Sumi, okay, great, amazing. Fatima. So can I take it's super clear and it's working? Yes or no on that? Yes. Okay, Sumi. Thank you. Right, brilliant, brilliant. So let's get it going. Let's get there. I know we are all focused on getting this figured out right. So, but feel free to interrupt and bring that questions and moment of making the dream come to reality. Let's bring that. I know all of us are preparing for the mandatory calls and it's helping tomorrow deadlines about these things. Brilliant, Taha. Thank you, Louisa, Mike. Amazing. Yes, Suresh, keep going. Suresh, let's get into demonstrating and keep moving it. So in about 10-15 minutes, let's have a quick break and then we'll come back. So, but let's keep going.
Sure.
Yes.
All right. So I'll briefly go through the expectations of the low code architecture. So now, before we discuss about the no code architecture, which is basically completely open for beginners, and let's say who is someone who's having some sort of programming background and who wants to have a little bit of more customization for applications. Yes, we have the option, which is the low code architecture. So in terms of low code architecture, we have three main important concepts: the widget tree. For an example, we have different components for each visual representations. We have columns to rows to containers to text, right? So those who have worked around web development, I know that you all are familiar with these sort of widgets and all. Second thing is that we have something called state management. For an example, just imagine you are logged into an application. Let's say you have a user login, and throughout the entire application, the login state should be persistent, right? Because every single time you sign out, every single time you close the application, and if the application is asking you to log in again and again and again, right? It's not a really good user experience. So we should maintain the state of the user, right? That could be a long-term state or that could be a short-term state. Every single action should have a state. So to work with that, there are frameworks built such as Redux framework for React Native and React also. And for Flutter, we have the Flutter's the set state and all. So we have different ways of maintaining state of the user, either in a long-term way or a short-term way. So in terms of long-term state, we call it as, so sometimes we store the state within the application context itself. Sometimes we store in the local storage. Sometimes we store the information in the database or in external database like Firebase or Superbase. And third thing is custom functions. For the people who are developing applications with custom functionalities, if you want to do if you want to have some sort of a customizability, they support the function customization as well. So for an example, if you take a platform like Flutterflow, yes, they have it. So another thing that I want to clarify is that Flutterflow and Flutter is not the same, right? Even though Flutterflow uses the technology of Flutter, it's not the same. The Flutterflow is actually a visual application builder, right? Flutter is a programming language, it's a framework to build applications, but Flutterflow is not. It's a full stack, it's a visual application builder that allows you customization with code also. So I'll do a very brief demonstration of Flutterflow as well. All right, so to sign up for Flutterflow, you can actually access Flutterflow website, which is this, and then you can create your own free account, and you can go through the sign up process, and you can start for free, and you can create an account from here. If you already have an account, you can log in, and then you can create your application. So from the new project section, you can actually create your application. So in the free accounts, they allow you 2 applications to be there, but for paid accounts, they will allow you more applications, maybe one unlimited applications they would support based on the plan that you would pick. So let me show you how easy it is to work around Flutterflow and create an application. So I'll just access something that I already have in hand. So I have this meal plan application I have done for create tabs. Let me show you that. So in Flutterflow also we have the drag and drop interface builder, just like Adalo, right? In Adalo, you have seen how easy it is to build the application using the drag and drop UI builder. In Flutterflow also, we have the same, right? From the navigation bar, you can actually see the different pages we have. So we have the onboarding page, we have the profile page, and multiple pages are here. So if you want to add a new page, you can just click on this plus icon and add a page or a component, or even a blank page is completely fine. Depends on the requirement. You can simply use their templates also. See how easy it is to create these sort of pages, right? Because we don't have to create every single component from the beginning itself, because Flutterflow supports all of these pre-made templates so that we can reuse and build our application from the ground up itself. Let's say if I want to add a sign up page or a sign page, I can just click on this and add this, right? See, the page is there. So now I can keep on customizing this. I can just change the text like this. And also I can change whatever the colors that I would prefer. So let's say if I have a different color theme, I can just change the stylings of this, and I can ensure that our color palette matches whatever the branding we have in hand. So that is completely possible. And also from here, we have the component gallery. So as you can see, compared to Adalo, we have more components in Flutterflow. We can just go to this and add whatever the component and customize our layout. The best thing about Flutterflow is that it has the coding mode also. So in case if you want to have some sort of external capability and external code integration, yes, Flutterflow has the coding mode. So those who have some sort of coding experience, yes, you can use Flutterflow and you can have your own code and you can have your custom functionalities written with Flutterflow. That is completely possible. So as you can see, they have the code editor also, so that you all can go ahead and edit the code. And yes, you can customize that. Also, one more thing, you had the flexibility of connecting Flutterflow with data sources like Firebase. So I'll talk about what is Firebase after the break, so that all of you will be on the same page and have the understanding of the different capabilities of Firebase. So I'll come to that after the break itself. Let's straight away understand the different components we have in Flutterflow. So as you can see, we have under this menu, we have the pages, and we can customize or add any sort of pages I wanted. So as you can see in the meal planner, is the meals page and forget password, onboarding, right? So you can see different pages are there, and it's very professional, right? Compared to Adalo, the UI looks and the interface looks very professional when compared to Adalo we have. And also we can, with the storyboard mode, we can actually link all of these pages together, so that in a way that we would have the interactivity between each pages. So we would know, okay, what should be the next page once you click on a button. So the interactivity completely, of course, we can customize Flutterflow. And also, in case if you want to connect the database or Firebase with Flutterflow, yes, we have the flexibility of doing that also. And also for application publication, they completely support publication on Google Play as well as Apple App Store also. Flutterflow supports both compared to Adalo. Right. Do we have any questions so far? All right. Pavas, are we going for the break or shall I continue the rest?
Yes, no, we'll go for a break.
Sure.
Let's have a quick 5 minutes break. And Minat, let's have the countdown on the screen. Team, I know there's a lot of knowledge download. Refresh, have a cup of coffee or some water, come back. We're going to go on the rest of the process and get it ready for this week. All your apps going to be on the testing mode for this week. Done. Let's have so you can stop sharing, Suresh. So, Minat, they'll just do it down now. Brilliant. Let's see you back in 5 minutes, team. Wonderful. All right, team. Hope you all can see the uh, countdown. Yes. Team, can you just give me a little bit of uh, thumbs up, hi, back on the message? Oh, yes. Amar, thank you. Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you, Abdullah. Thank you, Ajay. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Mike. Right. Amazing. Amazing. All right. Yes. Thank you, Khalid. Brilliant. So I can see the whole intense program development, all the entrepreneurial developer has been on, looking at in a multiple option. Some of these might be also relevant towards your post MVP, but as I said, our focus is right now MVP, but we develop in a more scalable way as much as possible, right? When you have developer resources and all of it, let's build it in the most scalable way. And if not, this pathway you hurdle, even a developer cannot be in hurdle for your idea to become a reality. That's the whole idea, right? Beautiful. Let's begin. Suresh, one, you're there? Yes. Yes. Let's go ahead, Suresh. Over to you. Let's get to the demonstration. Thank you.
All right. So hope my screen is visible. All good? Can someone please confirm if my screen is visible?
Yes, Suresh. All clear.
All right, perfect. So let's thanks all for waiting, and I know that you all have plenty of questions, but feel free to ask those questions, and yeah, definitely we can address any questions that you have in mind. Yeah, all right. So let's talk about the full code structure basically. So now previously we discussed about the no code, low code, right? And what are the differences and what are the advantages or disadvantages? Let's talk about full code. So this is something like Fawaz mentioned, even for your post MVP, even for your post development, this would be the architecture to follow, right? Because we can't really depend on the no code applications and the low code applications. That is good for MVP, but we should think about the scalability later on, even after the post deployment. What should be done? Because when I'm conducting the mentoring sessions, I met several teams who has already developed the applications up to some level. That's really good. So let's talk about some of the key considerations we should think about. So in terms of the full code track, the most of the frameworks are going to be either Flutter or React Native. And also we have the native iOS, which is written with Swift or Objective-C. And also if it's native Android, we have Kotlin and we have Java also. So Java is not being used now mostly. So it's mostly Kotlin. And we have a special platform called Jetpack Compose, right? So for the ones who are wondering what is Jetpack Compose, it's a framework that Google has launched very recently, and it's performing better than Flutter also, but still it's under the development stage. It's not fully stable, but in terms of performance, Google has mentioned that okay, in the future, Jetpack Compose is going to be a killer framework, maybe for cross-platform development. Yes, that's coming up. So for the ones who are wondering, for the ones who are techies, yes, of course, you can check it out as well. Right. So let's talk about the project structure, right? So in terms of full code applications, we should make sure our application is scalable and the code is understandable, right? For an example, let's say you have developers today. And then let's say if your developer team leaves and you get new developers into your team and maybe to continue the application, they should be able to understand what is written in your code. So we should always think about the maintainability, how we make sure the code is readable and how we make sure the project is structured in a way that anyone could understand very easily. So we have different components of project. We have something called SRC, which is a source folder, and then we have the components folder in case if you have some sort of reusable components. What I mean by reusability, right? Just imagine you are building an application, right? A mobile application that would have the footer that comprises of your copyright, right? And let's say you have 10 pages in your application. What would happen when the year changes and you have to change the year of the footer, right? Do you have to change every single 10 pages of application? That's not practical, right? Because it has to be reusable. When I make a change in one single place, the change should apply in all the places. So that's the whole purpose of a component. We use components to make the application code reusable, to avoid duplications, right? One thing is that there are ways that we can provide inputs to your components, and there are ways that you can provide outputs from your components. So we have the components, so always keep it as a separate directory and always group it in the perfect way that you could reuse your own components in multiple places. So yes, you have the flexibility of doing that. And third folder is the assets folder. So let's say assets are like the images, could be MP3s, could be PDFs, or if you have any sort of static media, yes, that could be part of your assets folder, maybe the logos, maybe the backgrounds, or whatever the static images. Yes, assets folder is there for you. And finally, we have the utilities folder. So utilities folder is basically like a helper classes. Let's say you have some sort of a formatting tools, you have some sort of a API integrators, things like that. Yes, utils folder will be there for storing those sort of things. So we have to make sure our application code is reusable in a way that we won't miss out anything. Even if a new developer comes to your team, they should be able to understand your code, and also make sure you have the code comments, make sure you have the code structuring, and proper repo structuring has to be there to make it reusable. Next thing is that the environmental setup. So in terms of setting up the environment, like I mentioned, we have for React applications, we are using the environment of Node.js. Even for React Native, React as well, we are using Node.js. For iOS applications, we are using CocoaPods, and for Android applications, we are using Gradle. So regardless of using React Native or Flutter or whatever, at the end of the day, compilation for the respective platform is done with the native compiler. For Android, it's Gradle. For iOS, it's CocoaPods. So those are the native compilers we have, even for Flutter applications and even for React applications, regardless of whatever the application framework you use, at the end of the day, it gets compiled into native machine code, machine understandable code. So that gets done through the whatever the respective machine compile. And next thing is state management. So I already mentioned what is state. So like I mentioned, in the previous example, the login example, you have to make sure the state is maintained, even if it's a login. Okay, what sort of data are we going to persist of the user? Let's say if you talk about the short-term state, let's say if you're making some sort of an API call retrieve products of an e-commerce store, right? How are we going to fetch that, and how are we going to store it in our local machine, in our local application, and how are we going to represent that as a state? Yes, we have different ways of handling that. For React Native applications and for React applications, we have the framework of Redux. So they use a concept called reducers. So that's why we call it as Redux to maintain the state properly. That's something we could do. And finally, this is something very, very important, right? So we know that a lot of people are building applications, even though we have a very solid foundation of coding, we should maintain the versions, right? If you're working with a team, you should know how do you collaborate it. To make the collaboration easier and to make the versioning easier, we have the source controls like GitHub. So even if you're working with external development team throughout the program, I would recommend you all to set up a Git or GitHub version controlling so that they could commit their application versions to your Git repository, and also you can maintain the versioning. So even if they make a change, we have the control. The advantage is that even if something goes wrong, let's say you're releasing versions, you're releasing version number 1, and on top of that, you're releasing version number 1.1. Let's say there's a critical bug in version 1.1, and we won't roll it back, right? We can just simply switch back to a different version from the Git version control. So, and also during the development process also, in case if there's a mistake, yes, we had a option of rolling it back to a previous version. And also we can see the progress, right? Whether they are committing their work, whether the developers are actively engaged with the development, whether they are actually, committing or contributing to the application. Yes, we had the flexibility of identifying every single thing with Git and GitHub version controlling. So GitHub is a platform. Git is the concept. GitHub is a platform. Apart from that, we have another platform called GitLab. If you all want more stability and if you all want more data independence, GitLab would be the go-to choice, but GitHub is also there. It's very easy to use. And, in terms of using it, it's very straightforward as well. So yeah, let me show you what GitHub looks like. So we have, this is how GitLab looks like. It's actually it's a code repository. You could actually set up your own repository by clicking on this plus icon, and you can click on this option called repository, new repository, and you can create one for your application. Let's say test app or something like that. You can give it a description and you can have the visibility, right? Whether if it's a public or private, you can mention that. But I would recommend always create the repository as a private repo, because no one could access that. Only the people that you give access could access to your code repository. So whatever the versions they do, whatever the changes they make, is going to be completely visible on top of this repository. And in case if you want to track changes and tracking the versions and rolling it back to previous versions, yes, we have the advantage. And one more thing, with the Git repositories, we have the flexibility of, we have a concept called branches. Let's say you have 5 people who are working on 5 different features. And let's say when they want to merge their changes together, at the end, if they don't use something like a GitHub, they would face a very big difficulty. You know why? Because merging code is going to be very complicated at the end of the day. But if you use something like GitHub, and let's say you have a team who is working on 5 different features, at the end of the development or during the development, we have the flexibility of merging the changes together and merging every single feature together, and maintaining perfect state of the code, so that it's very organized and we don't have to run around the messy development life cycle, because everything is going to be perfectly structured. So yeah, GitHub would be the perfect choice for that sort of a purpose. So yeah, so once you create the repository, you will see something like this, and then you can set it up. So I'll show you a small guide. I can send you a guide of the GitHub has a very great learning sources. So they have something called in case if you're a student, they have given something called GitHub student developer pack as well. Even if you're a student or a postgraduate, they have given access to their products for free of charge, so that you all can sign up with your academic account or a professional account and you can claim it basically. But you'll have to be an undergraduate or a postgraduate to be eligible for this. This is something additional for the students I can mention. Yeah, you all can try it out, because they are giving us a lot of applications, from Copilot to open source applications to cloud to multiple sources are there. So in case if you want to get these free perks, free advantages, yes, they provide you all of this for free of charge, that you all can try it out. So yeah, GitHub is going to be the go-to option for you to have a structured code, for you to have a structured application. All right, so we have a question. Where can I find the repository link on GitHub? Yes, that's a good question. So basically, once you create the repository, you will actually see the repository under your profile. So you can see my profile icon is there, and under that there's this option called repositories, right? So under the repositories, you can actually see your repository over here, and this is how you can access that. Basically, whenever you create a repository, it will come under your profile. So then you can access that from here, and then you can upload your code over here using the committing command. So there's something called git commands that we use to push your work from your local environment to this Git environment, or you can manually upload those. So those are very beginners. If you are not sure about the Git commands, you can straight away upload it right here as well. And they have a desktop client in case if you all want to use it in a visually appealing way. We have something called Git Desktop. It's an application that you all can use to access the Git services in a visual way. So that is also there. And yeah, let's move forward. Or do you have any questions so far? All right.
Okay,
So
there's a question from Nava. Where can I find the repository link on GitHub? That's what you answered. Yeah, good.
yeah, correct.
Right, brilliant. Let's keep going and let's show the Firebase as well by the team. Feel free to shoot in any questions, but I think Suresh, we are doing good. The basics on we'll see this reflection on the tomorrow's and day after mandatory calls. They'll have more clear GitHub versions, and the whole idea again, any of this is to as an entrepreneurially own the product. You can outsource, you can have in-house, you can have AI development, but it's very important you own the development environment as entrepreneurs and as owners of the conceptual ideas. That's more important. That's what will take you to sustainability rather than developing something and throw away. We really want to see your app is performing down there in the market. Brilliant. Keep going, Suresh.
Yes, of course, Fawaz. Like you mentioned, it's all about maintaining the ownership of your application as well, even if it's a third-party team, even if you're on developer, make sure you have the full ownership within the organization to make sure your code is fully safe and it's going to be maintainable as well. Even if you take a third-party developer to work on your application, make sure it's readable and maintainable in the future as well. So keep that in mind always when you're developing something. Right. Okay. So let's move forward. So now I'll talk about Firebase. So even in the previous explanation about Flutterflow, I showed you something called Firebase, right? So Firebase is actually a Google product. So it's from Google. So it's not only database. So Firebase offers you multiple services like authentication, storage, databases, analytics, and multiple other features with Firebase basically. Let me tell you why it's great, right? Just imagine a couple of years ago, we had the traditional username and password based login flows, right? Couple of years ago, but none of the people are using it actually. Because do you remember the username and password that you entered for a custom application? No, right? Because we don't remember the application username and password for each application. So slowly, the username and password entering concept is dying. You know why? People don't remember that, but people would remember their biometric, right? Because we just a matter of showing our face or placing a thumb or even to connect your third-party account. For an example, you might have seen features like login with Google, login with Facebook, things like that, right? People would prefer something like that over entering the traditional email and password combination because the user friendliness. So we have with Firebase, they are like tackling every single scenario, every single difficulty that people may face while building the applications. One thing is authentication. Firebase provides you a very great authentication service that provides you pre-built sign-in experiences with Google, Apple, and also email and password also. But very easily we can integrate the third-party logins like Google and Apple also without having a technical hassle. Second thing is that the storage and the analytics. In case if you want to store someone's photos, let's say data or documents or something like that. Yes, Firebase provides you a storage option. They provide you 5 GB of storage with a free option, but once you upgrade, you can upgrade up to unlimited number of data, right? Some people, so recently when when I'm on LinkedIn, I saw a post saying that Firebase is not a scalable DB. It's a debate going on. And then I saw there are very powerful case studies as well. Why Firebase is not a scalable solution and why Firebase is a scalable solution, right? Some people are arguing that, okay, Firebase is not a great scalable solution, but in my opinion, it's a great tool, right? As long as you have the perfect guardrails, as long as you have the perfect, connectivities and the code in place, Firebase can be a cost saver. Because based on this case study that I mentioned, they have actually saved up to 75% of the actual server cost that would have been gone to a third-party service provider by using Firebase. So now it's only 25% of cost they are paying for a cloud provider of Firebase, right? Just like that, if you use it right, if you use it in the right way, you can save the cost a lot, you can save your time a lot, and you don't have to worry about having scalable hardware, right? Because everything is being taken care of. For an example, Firebase provides you cloud functions as well, something like a serverless function provider. If you want to host your own backend endpoint in Firebase, they support that also. And they provide you a database. They provide you with storage. Even after the post launch, if you want to see who is using application, they provide you analytics, and also they provide you authentication. So every single thing they provide you with Firebase. And also Firebase launched a new product called Firebase GenKit. So it's actually, if you want to have some sort of AI integration with the application, they have Firebase GenKit as well. So AI is made easy by Google. Let me show you how it works. Very, very quick. So you can actually go to Firebase platform, and once you create a project, this is what you see. And from the sidebar, you can actually access their services. For example, the database, authentication, storage, and analytics, and every single thing is there. So let me show you their database, right? So from this section, you can create a Firebase database, and you can store whatever the users, whatever the information you wanted, right? You can store the users information, you can store post, you can store products, you can store any type of information in the Firebase database. It's very scalable. So the way they make money, right, is it's actually a pay-as-you-go plan that you would subscribe to, and based on the usage only, they will bill you. So if you want to see their pricing, it's very transparent. So if you search for Firebase pricing, it's right here. So if you want to have an understanding on how would they charge users, yes, you can see in the free plan, they give up to, 10 GB of data storage, and also most information is there on the pricing plan. So let me share this link with you all as well, so that you all can have better understanding on what Firebase could do and how Firebase would charge you moving forward in the journey. Right, this is Firebase database, and then we have Firebase authentication. So if you go to authentication, you can see they support multiple types of authentication mechanisms. So not only email and password, they would support Google, Facebook, Google Play Games, GitHub, Twitter, Apple, and every single type of authentications are preferred. And also it gives you a mobile authentication mechanism as well, the OTP verification also, in case if you want to have OTP, that facilitates your requirement. Yes, that is also there. And we have anonymous source. So depends on what are the requirement you all have. You can easily configure Firebase as the auth provider, and you can build a scalable auth service. The next thing is Firebase storage. In case if you want to store any information, maybe the profile pictures or data or what are the information of the users, you can actually go to the storage section and you can upload the files, and you can even program this Firebase storage to automatically upload the files into the storage. So all the flexibility is given with Firebase. And also Firebase has a really great analytics tool. It's called Firebase Analytics. You can see who your users are, where are the locations they're accessing from, the device models, the countries, the interactions they are doing with the application. So everything is very transparent and very visible on Firebase Analytics. It's a very great, it's a really great tool that you all can get going. And also it's linked to Google Analytics as well. So right now, Google Analytics is the top-notch analytics provider in the world. So in case if you want to have some sort of analytics provider, yes, Google Analytics is there for you. You can have a really great analytics basically. So another type of database that we have in Firebase is that we have something called real-time databases, because we could have different types of data. We could have real-time data and we could have persistent data. So in case if you want to have real-time information, maybe for a real-time scoreboard, maybe for a real-time stock market kind of data, maybe some sort of real-time news, things like that could be automated with Firebase real-time database. So we have two types of databases. We have the Firestore and we have the real-time information. So both of these things are possible with Firebase. And also there are so many other features, like I mentioned before. In case if you want to have an AI capability, let's say you want to have an AI agent within your application, Firebase has this option called Firebase GenKit. As you can see, GenKit is a really good way to integrate AI into your application. So I've been using this for over past couple of years, and it's been very helpful. So you all can try out this as well. So apart from Firebase, we have another option, alternative option, which is called Superbase, basically. Superbase is there. So that's alternative to Firebase. So similar to Firebase, they are providing you some similar solutions. If you require some sort of Postgres kind of a database to be hosted, they provide you that, authentication, analytics, storage. So all of these things are provided with Superbase as well. So Firebase and Superbase both are really great backends, could be really great backends to your application. So integration is made very easy with these sort of backend providers. Right. All right. So now we have discussed many things, right? We have discussed about the low code tracks, no code tracks, and the full code options we have, and Firebase and things like that. So now we are actually living in the era of AI, right? Because we know that a lot of applications are built with AI right now. So I recently heard the CEO of Claude, Anthropic company, saying by the end of 2026, 90% of the code is going to be written by AI agents. So he mentioned this regard at a conference, a public conference. So we are living in the era of AI, and the AI is really capable of doing really great things. So let me introduce you all some options we have in terms of generating code with AI. So at the end of this program, we have a small demonstration as well. But before that, let me introduce you all what we have in the market and how you could use it. And after that, I'm pretty sure that you'll be inspired to use these tools to, build your applications using AI, right? One great tool is that we have Firebase Studio. So they allow you vibe coding as well. So vibe coding is going to be a trend. It's going to be a ongoing trend. So let's say you want to build a simple application. Let's say you want to build a restaurant application. You just have to go to Firebase Studio and say, okay, I want to build a restaurant application with color scheme purple, yellow, right? So, but the thing is, when you're explaining about the prompt, right, you have to be very specific. So never give prompts like this, right? I'm just giving you a bad example, right? Don't provide prompts like this. Be very specific. Be very specific about what you need, right? If you say something like this, it will just generate you something, right? Without having a lower level understanding, it will just generate a random application with certain, behaviors. So what you could do is you can always use this prompt called improve prompt. Then it will, get better prompting, right? Saying something like this. And also you can mention the features. What are the features you wanted? Let's say you wanted the listing features, to see the calories, to see the availabilities, right? So just like that, you can mention whatever the features that you wanted, and then proceed with whatever the continuation. So based on that, once you define every single thing, you can make sure that, yes, the application is going to be useful and the specifics are met. So yeah, you can keep that in mind when you're creating prompt. And also you can use a service like Gemini or ChatGPT to improve your prompt, so that in a way that it would understand the exact context that you want to address, and it will generate the application for you. So let me just give this. It says a vibrant customer facing restaurant app. All right, with these features. Let's get started. So now it will take about, let's say, 2 minutes to build this application. And even if you take Flutter applications, Firebase Studio supports Flutter applications also. You can easily wipe code Flutter applications, or you can wipe code Angular applications as well, and also Next.js applications. So they will give you a summary like this. And once you click on prototype, it will start creating the application for you, right? So they support Flutter, they support Angular, Next.js, and a lot of frameworks are supported. So you can just try it out and see how it works. And, you can do great things with this. Trust me. Right. So it's going to take a couple of minutes. So until that, let me give you a really good guideline, right? So I know that it's going to take like 2 to 3 minutes. So I don't want to waste your time, to see this being created. So AI is going to automatically create this. So let me give you some useful resources until this is being created. So I'm going to share an important document with all of you. So I have summarized a lot of things, the things that you could, it could be useful for you, especially for the people who are working with different languages, front-end frameworks. I have listed like very useful things in this document. So let me share that with you all so that all of you will be, yeah, let me share this, right? Done. So you all can access this. So this has useful front-end frameworks. This has useful state management framework, application development frameworks, as well as styling kits. So those who want to build really great looking UIs and to build really great looking applications, these are the best styling kits that I could recommend, right? Trust me, you can build production grade applications with these sort of styling kits. Feel free to experience all of this and feel free to use these and understand what we could do with these sort of ready-made UI kits. Yeah, because we don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? Because the wheel is already been invented. We don't have to waste our time on building every single component, right? Styling every single thing. We don't have to waste our time because it's already been built. Let me show you a sample. If I take Tailwind, they have something called Tailwind Component Gallery, right? If I go to the section of, let's say, Showcase, let me show you this Tailwind UI. They have really professional set of components so that you can, reuse and rebuild it and, experience with it. So I would say check out these things because you don't have to rebuild once again, right? Because these sections are there and the code is also given, right? So there are UI kits. So if you want to build interactive applications, mobile and desktop as well, yes, you have the flexibility because all of these UIs are really mobile friendly, right? You can see the responsiveness wise. These are very responsive and interactive as well, so that you all can, build really cool looking applications without, spending much time on coding. And I want you all to check out these things, check out this support material in a way that you all could use it and in the best possible way. All right, so let's go to the Firebase Studio. Okay, it's still creating. Okay, until it does, let me go back to some other resources that I can mention. So those who want to learn more about these sort of Google tech, Flutter or any sort of things like that, Google has a really great site called Google Code Labs that you all can try out. So Google has something called Google Code Labs. Those who want to understand the Google technologies like GenKit, Firebase, Flutter, and things like that, this is going to be the perfect learning curve, learning roadmap that you all can find out. And it has everything, right? AI to cloud to application development to every single thing is there that you want to try it out, right? So you can simply go there and understand it. Right, great. So still taking some time. Anyways, I'll hand it over to Tuan to continue the rest as well. Anyways, before that, let me show you one quick thing before I hand it out as a support material. I know that a lot of people are here who are developing applications with different frameworks, right? Before that, I know some of the people who are in the UI designing phase as well. For someone to, I'll give a very support material, a really great tool that you all can use to convert your Figma designs into code as well. Once you right click on Figma, there's an option called Manage Plugins. So from here, there's something called Figma to Code. It's a library, it's a package that converts your Figma design into a real world code, right? For an example, let's say if you want to generate code out of this, once you have installed this plugin, just a matter of right clicking and choosing the plugin, Figma to Code. And then once you click on the layer, you can easily generate the code for HTML, Tailwind, Flutter, Swift UI, anything like that. See how easy that is to, convert your Figma designs into a real world application without writing any code, right? It's very simple like this. So you can even see the color palettes are there and the code is there. I believe this would be a really great tool and helpful tool for you all to convert your applications into.
Absolutely, Suresh, for sure. Right. So the team, again, reiterating this, there's quite a lot of tools which again take these concepts, understand what we can do, and your mentoring calls are there for it so that you come on a working condition, right? Ready to put time, we fix it with you, be there. It's not, again, the mentoring call from this week is about real-time fixing, right? So let's make sure that we are also ahead of the curve. Whatever we don't have fixed in the sort of AI environment can be really of helpful. Yes, Duan, let's accelerate. Let's look into something where, okay, much more of a different perspective as well, or a more like very basic question from Lovable to how you can also connect. Very quick one.
Yeah.
Suresh, we'll connect with a lot more with one-to-one calls with the teams to take this forward, the development journey. More than happy to take this up and make sure that your idea to generation is done in the most scalable way, but at the same time, more timely way. Right, let's
Of
go.
course. Also, before I hand over, so as you can see, the application is up and running, right? You can see the effort that I put to build this application. So nothing is possible with AI right now. So over to you, Tuan.
Thanks, Suresh. Is my screen visible? Just can I get information?
It is visible to us.
Okay. So as we've been talking about how AI can help us make applications, I would like to show you all an easy approach to get your app up and running as a mobile app. So I think all of you all must have heard of a little website called Lovable. So even during the mentorship calls, I saw many of you all have done web applications and just small demos using Lovable itself. But there's a lot more that you can do with Lovable and another app I think we introduced today called Flutter Flow. So to begin, I would first like to show you how, as you all know, Lovable is a no-code platform. So you can just give it a simple prompt, such as, can you create, again, this is an example when you want to develop your own app, I would recommend you become detailed as possible. Create a so once you give a small prompt detailing what your application is, Lovable will start to generate an app. As you can see here, it'll start detokenizing the prompt and then getting a rough idea on what it has to develop. So the great thing about Lovable, I think all of us know, is that it also publishes the application that you can use. And this particular fact helps us a lot. Okay, I think it might take a bit of time. So in the benefit of time, I've already generated a similar app like this. So this is what it generated. A website like this, and then we can go through page range, and then it'll give you a recommendation. So one thing that we can do with this particular app is if we copy this link, and if you go to Flutterflow and create a project as we showed earlier, and if you open a new project, just wait for it to load. So if you have any questions about anything, just drop it down in the chat. I'm open to answer. If you have anything directed to Suresh as well, you can put it down. So as you saw here, as Suresh demonstrated previously, you get everything like this, and then you can obviously drag and drop. But one interesting element that we can do is something called a web view. You can just drag down this particular component here and drop it down. So As you can see, this entire app was generated using Lovable, and it was published using the same tool. If I just copy this particular link, and once you drag the web view, drop it down on the page, and you go down to web URL right here, and you paste this link, you should get that particular app right here loading on. Just give it some time. So you can see here. So obviously I can adjust the height as well. I'll just make it 1,000 down. All right. So as you can see here, in under 5 minutes, I generated an app using Lovable. And I've already fitted it into a mobile-based application. So the best way to test this out is if I go to preview mode. If you go here, as you can see, it works perfectly as if it's just another mobile application. You can obviously adjust all the layouts, folder, range, that, and then you should be able to generate this small layout issue. But this just shows how easy it is to go from idea to application using AI. So the main tools that I've only used 2 tools here, but you can do much more with Flutterflow as well. But all you have to do is simply just go to Lovable, enter your information about the idea. And I would ideally recommend you have a larger prompt detailing the exact scope of the MVP. You can generate a particular prompt, you can generate a particular website. And once you're done with that, you can just click on publish. And once you click on publish, say this, and then you say press continue, say public so that anyone can view it, continue, and then you're going to press this side. I'm going to do everything, and I'm going to click on publish. So once you click on publish, it should be there deploying your application online. And then once it deploys it, you just copy the URL, come out to Flutterflow, get the web view, drag and drop, go down here, and then change the URL. Simple as that.
All right, no
So,
problem, Eliza. No
yeah.
problem. All right, Tuan, brilliant, amazing.
Hand it over to Fawaz.
Sure. So now from there, as you know, you can get an APK, right, or a downloadable file you can upload to your build on Android or iOS. So see, the idea is we do have ways based on your time, technological commitment, and how much do you want to lead this composition of development versus marketing. The idea behind minimum viable products is to make sure you go to the market, right? To make sure that you are there, then you cross-reflect, but you are in a dynamic environment. You might change something to go to market or change to adapt. You learn something, so that you want to reflect that as a feature. You want to reflect in terms of your promotion sometime, or if you decide to give 100 people will get a free access. So like subscription types are different changes. So you might need to be accessible to make sure that you have options of being dynamic and also not to delay it. So the idea is development process has to cut down, but it has to become efficient. It has to be done logical in such a way we can expand, scale, more than expand and scale, you can modify, right? Yes, Luisa. So Luisa, the idea is whatever Tuan was showing is also from Lovable. We get a web app done, and we put the Flutter to put the web view. You can customize and still be app to be published. The idea is from what Suresh said, low code, no code to low code, and the full code versus a complete allowable structure, which is a composition of the low code technically, right? So you don't code at all unless you go to the Flutter and change few CSS and all of it. Yes, Hassan. These are different, but again, does more or less does the same job. But what you need to understand is, like we said, there are 3 different processes, right? Front end, back end, database, and API, which is one part of your development, and then you come to publishing and developing, publishing, and also publishing into the Android, right? Publishing your app, live and also getting it accepted in the App Store and the Play Store, which has its multiple dimensions and approaches. Brilliant. Minat, can we get back to the slides? We've got a few minutes. We just wanted to make sure that we are all aligned. And please do make sure log in and book your mandatory mentorship for tomorrow. I know most of you has ahead of submissions. Very glad to see, we already see that the way you have updated your build status and some of you are getting into the testing phases. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that amazing commitment. We just wanted to make sure this session is giving you the holistic approach. Now we are getting back to our apps to get this done. Right, brilliant. Suresh, if you could share the screen for me, the slides.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Amina. So until that, do you have any questions, team? I see some. I'm gonna see. This is different from AI Studio, and so again we saw. But you can go next to us. Skip. We talked about it, and okay. The Google Play Store requirements, very straightforward. We did talk to make sure the 20 test rulers are there. So when your app and APK is ready, there is a process which you need to invite a Google Play Console developer, because some of you are going through right now. So you will be assigned with the 20 internal testers and to continuously 14 days. And then you have a verification, identity verification, usually part of your account creation, and which will be pending and to go on. And then DUNS number. Mostly review time is 7+ days, but let's make sure that we are ahead of the time. Next. And the Apple Store requirements, almost the same approach. As you know, most of you have developed the Apple developer account, and I know some of you didn't give the access, some of you got rejected, and some of them are still figuring it out to get the particular response and update from Google. This is one of the reasons why we wanted you to start that now, so that we don't wait till the last moment, anything which can be sorted. So we do had a question about, some of you asked, can I publish it through a developer account? If I have a developer, if I have a company, you can absolutely can, right? As far as you as an entrepreneur has a very good, a beautiful relationship and understanding them, and this is an app you own, some MOUs in between, we don't want that, but to make sure that you safeguard and secure your publishings and go to market. Next, Suresh. Right. So Suresh talked about quite a lot of this in the previous versions. The bundle IDs, signing and versioning. If you do have any challenges, I know we are going to take this amount 1-to-1 too. But if you do have any challenges, please raise your questions here. If any of you are in this particular current stage, we would love to get them covered. Next, Suresh.
Was a small
Yeah.
comment on the bundle
Yeah,
IDs
please.
thing. So I think let me clarify that what is the bundle ID basically.
Mm.
So just like you have your own unique identifier for yourself, the ID, national ID, right? For each of these applications on Play Store and the Apple App Store, there's something called a unique identifier, which is called the bundle ID, right? So when you're trying to publish something, publish an application, first of all, we have to find out whether the namespace that you're gonna reserve is unique. So my advice is to, when you're planning this sort of bundle identifier, always go in the reverse approach. For an example, just say your domain is createapps.dubai.com. So in that case, take it in the reverse order. Take the com first, and then create app second, and at the end, the app name last. So in that way, you can make sure that your application name is unique. Make sure you take the domain first of all, and take the domain name first of all, and the domain identifier second, and finally the application name as a third space. And you can make sure you will create the unique identifier, and your application will be ready to publish basically. And also you can do a simple search on Play Store or Apple App Store as well. From the URL itself, you can search, and you can understand whether the application ID is unique. So if you use the domain name always, every single time, you can make sure your application identifier will be unique. So you can mention that. Second thing, application signing basically. Before you go into the production, there's a process called signing. So anyway, we'll discuss about the signing process at the one-on-one calls as well, so that you will have better understanding. So there's a process called signing, which is like the final sign off for an application before we release something to the production. So we have the signing process, and finally we have the versioning. So versioning means, for an example, let's say you release the version number 1, and on top of that, we should be releasing majors, minors, and patches. Majors mean, which is the main features basically. And then we have the minors means, for an example, if you are releasing some sort of a low features, let's say maybe some sort of a minor upgrade, we should have it as a minor, which is the second value. And finally, if we have some sort of a patch, which means bug fixes or anything like that, we have to increment the last value. So we call the first value as major, second value as the minor, and third value is the patch. So in case if it's a bug release or something like a bug fix or something like that, we should increment this, this, and this depending on the release. So we should define this number for each version so we all can be in place basically.
Amazing, team. So with that, the next step is, yes, Mira.
Hello, everyone. I was, sorry, just I have one question about the submissions, the milestones. I have been reading the milestones, all the milestones we're required to submit during the 4 weeks. So now that we have like chosen the minimal, like 3 features that will go in the MVP, I have found like I have 2 questions about almost like the week before the last. It says one of the submissions permissions and another submission is privacy policy. So is this something that we're supposed to have like in the MVP, or this submission is only like a document we have to download?
No, Mira, this is definitely why that is on the last stage, but all that we have talked about is this is a fundamental requirement for your Google Play or Apple Store to get your app approved. You need to have a permission and privacy policy. Now, while you're, I mean, the MVP, you see, do you need this to have this function in your development environment? No. But when you want to get it published to Android or Apple Store, this is mandatory.
So it's supposed to be embedded in the MVP.
It could be a web page. It could be a document. So we'll get there when you have the MVP process finalized. How are you going to go? Because some of them are doing full code. Now, if you're doing, I think, low code, the idea is you are developing in a web page environment somewhere, right? We are coding them. Once that is built, we're going to put a new page called privacy policy and the permission policies. That's going to enable that particular requirement, and which we will have that done. So that's why it's in the last stage, but we are preparing for it. When you have your Apple developer account, it will be fine.
It's not required to be embedded in the MVP. It could be like a website or
yes,
like
absolutely.
any like a web page or like a document.
Yes,
and,
that is one of, go on.
Another question for like not this week, the week after, for the testing and like the bug testing and everything. Is if I'm like dealing with like an external app developer, they will be doing the testing. Am I supposed like to share like the updates with you guys, like on the testing and everything?
If they are doing the testing for you, if you do not want the testing support, because we will be having an accelerated testing support in terms of the 14 days mandatory or bug fixing which is part of our accelerator program. If your developer is able to handle that, usually what we do is we anyway test it as a milestone and we give our feedback. So you can give that feedback to your developer, and developer also can access and fix it, because anyway it's mandatory to do a couple of fixes within these 14 days. So when we move to the testing phase, that will be the development. That's one of the reasons we get the minimum build and upload, so that during the testing phases we can also release, so that you're fighting the 14 days as well, Mira. Okay, that's very flexible how it can work to you and your available resources.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem, Mira. Amazing. Any other questions, team? So as I said, all of this is packed in the minimal approach. So almost all the milestone you need to submit has some sort of a connection to make this particular app live. That's the whole idea. And yes, so let's work towards it. And then, okay, initialize your project, Git repo or platform project based on make sure everything is clear by the approach you take. And a database setup, easy to connect the Firebase, Superbase, Airtable, or if you are going to make it on a very localized environment, you're going to develop it completely. Last one is the AI experiment. generate your first assets, functions using AI, understand, like if you're already doing it on a different approach, but you see a development hurdle, see how you can develop and bring that here, right? So make sure we work around this. This is why it's grained as an assignment, not as a milestone, but just to give you the punch of working around it. Let's move next. Amazing. So what are the submission for this week? As we said, development progress. We are moving into a very clear, scalable development approach. The journey has begun. And to GitHub commits, right? So if this can be any version control systems you use, just take a screenshot that you are working on a version control. So during the testing phases or during all of other phases can help. I would like to again reiterate something. If you want, just for the sake of developing some sort of an MVP and put it live so that later you will redevelop and go live, that is your least option, to be very honest, right? But you as an entrepreneur bringing the idea to reality, that's why we wanted to get this particular ownership governance done in such a way you have a lot more control and you can keep going it. This doesn't stop with this competition, with this accelerator, right? Let's keep going. So let's have these two submissions unlocked. Let's do a final exit ticket. Let's take the phone, scan the QR code, and get to what do you think about the front end and the back end? Is it very clear, somewhat, or still confused? Right? Let's go. Let's submit. Let's keep this particular slide for about 30 more seconds. But amazing. Thank you very much. All of you were in this call, which means, yes, we are serious on the programming, right? So the journey is beautiful. Right. Let's move next, Suresh. Let's get the results. Right. Amazing. So we've moved to a lot of very clear and somewhat. So glad that we don't have still confused. So we have somewhat and a very clear that both of these help to go. I have a question from Fatima. I have a question about the development progress report should cover the same segment discussed now at the beginning with my Suresh. Can I submit my ClickUp plan for Tazil? Absolutely. Yes, Fatima. We will definitely. That's a good approach in terms of you are having your own project management approach. We'll definitely love that and support you with that. Please do share and I'll bring that up on your one-to-one coaching. We'll make sure you are developing this in your own way. We are just a tool of making sure this is happening. Beautiful, Fatima. Thank you. Right, let's move. Right. So what's next is the workshop 4, one before the last, because the last one will happen in the 9th of March, which you have a 2 weeks break in between that. So which means with this one, almost the entire knowledge download is done. Let's make sure by the workshop 4, we are in that phase, testing, feedback, and refining your MVP. Only then it's going to be very useful, right? Thank you. And I know there's a lot of one-to-one calls for tomorrow. Going to see you guys there. Wishing you all the very best. I'm already seeing the submissions, great enthusiasm. We'll take it beyond what you are building in a more sustainable way. Thank you, Carmen, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Fawaz. So thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Fawaz. Thank you, Tuan. Thank you, Suresh, the three of you for running the workshop number 3. So as Fawaz said, next workshop is next Monday. So we'll see you all on Monday 23rd, same time, 3 p.m. And just a last thing, you can find workshop 2, the workshop that was held on Thursday. Yes, it was the past Thursday. You can find it on the Create Apps Championship portal. So if you need to watch it again or review some parts of the workshop, it's already available for you. And this one will be available very soon, either tomorrow, probably. Okay, or after tomorrow, but most probably will be tomorrow. So that's it. Thank you very much once again. Looking forward to see you on Monday. Good luck with the submission. Bye-bye.
Until next time, happy learning.